The battlefield burned like a dying sun. Black smoke coiled into the red sky, and the ground trembled under the weight of orbital bombardments. Amid the chaos, Sergeant Alan Voss crawled through the ruins of what once was a city, now nothing but twisted metal and ash. His armor was cracked, HUD flickering, pulse rifle dry. Every breath tasted like dust and blood. He wasn't sure what kept him moving anymore. Instinct, maybe, or stubbornness. Then he heard it, a faint cry beneath the rubble. Not human, softer, desperate. Alan froze, scanning the wreckage. The sound came again, two tones, like a mother and child. He forced his body up, ignoring the pain tearing through his ribs, and began digging through the debris. Metal burned his hands, concrete crushed his knees, but he didn't stop. Finally, beneath the collapsed support beam, he saw them. A tall alien woman with pale blue skin streaked in blood, her body shielding a small girl curled against her chest. The child's eyes flickered with dim golden light, tears carving paths through the suit. The woman looked up weakly as Alan dragged the beam aside. Her voice trembled, thick with pain, but heavy with something deeper, pleading. "Human, please, my daughter." Alan knelt, checking their vitals. The child was alive. The mother, barely. "Don't move," he said, voice low but firm. "I'll get you both out." She shook her head, blood slipping from her lips. "No time. They will return." Her trembling hand touched his chest. "You, strong, take her. Save her." Alan frowned, refusing. "We're all getting out." But then her eyes glowed, faint, violet, unnatural. The air around them shimmered with a strange hum as energy rippled from her skin into his armor. Alan gasped as warmth surged through his veins, healing, strengthening, burning like liquid fire. She smiled, a mother's final look as her glow dimmed. "Take my strength, but save my daughter." The child cried out, clutching her mother's fading hand. Alan froze for a heartbeat, then lifted the girl into his arms as the ruins shook again. Above them, alien dropships descended, and the battlefield roared to life once more. Alan looked down at the child, her small hands clutching his armor. "I promise, I'll keep her safe." And as the sky burned red, he ran. The wind howled over the ruined battlefield, carrying with it the echo of distant plasma fire and the faint cries of the dying. Ash and blood turned the soil black, smoke twisting like ghosts above shattered machines. Sergeant Mason Hale stumbled through the wreckage, his armor cracked, his left arm trembling from blood loss. His radio hissed with static. No response. He was alone. Again. Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to war. A soft, broken sob. Mason turned toward the ruined transport, half buried under scorched stone. Inside, through the flickering firelight, he saw her, an alien woman, tall and lean, her bluish skin smeared with ash, one leg crushed beneath the debris. Her eyes, silver like moonlight, locked onto his with raw fear. In her arms she held a small girl, still, silent, not breathing. Mason dropped his rifle instantly. "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you!" He crawled closer, hands raised. The alien mother flinched but didn't look away. Her voice was weak, trembling. "She's dying. Please, help her." Mason's gaze darted to his med pack. He'd used most of his supplies on the men who didn't make it, but one injector remained, enough for one life. He looked back at the girl. Her pulse was fading. Then at the mother, whose own wounds were far worse. "Damn it," he muttered, biting his lip. He moved fast, kneeling beside them. "Hold her still." The alien mother's trembling hands obeyed. Mason injected the serum into the girl's chest. For a moment, nothing. Then the child gasped, coughing weakly, her tiny chest rising again. The alien woman stared, disbelief and relief flooding her face. You saved her." Mason exhaled shakily. "Not for long if we don't get out of here." But then she did something he didn't expect. She reached out, pressing a bloodied hand against his chest. You gave life. Let me give you strength." Before Mason could react, energy surged from her palm, a glowing blue light spreading through his veins, burning and freezing at once. His wounds began to close. His breath steadied. Her glow dimmed. "Stop! You're killing yourself!" he shouted. Her lips trembled, a faint smile breaking through tears. "She lives. That's all that matters." Mason caught her as her body went limp.
eyes still open, fixed on her daughter. The battlefield around them roared with thunder, but all he heard was the quiet, breaking heartbeat in his arms.
The night had fallen quiet. Only the wind moved, whispering through the hollow ruins like a ghost that refused to leave. Mason had dragged the alien woman's body and her daughter into a half-collapsed bunker, one of the few places still standing. A dim emergency light flickered inside, painting the walls in trembling amber. The little girl lay wrapped in Mason's torn field jacket, breathing softly now. Her skin glowed faintly under the pulse of alien energy, the same energy that had saved Mason's life. He could feel it still, coursing in his veins like liquid fire, warm and heavy in his chest. He looked at the woman lying next to him. Her body was still, her face peaceful, as if she had finally escaped the sound of war. Mason clenched his fists, anger twisting inside him. You shouldn't have done that. You should have lived. A weak cough made him turn. The girl stirred, eyes fluttering open, bright and silvery like her mother's. For a moment she looked around in confusion. Then her small voice broke the silence. "Mama?" Mason froze. He swallowed hard, forcing his voice to stay calm. She's resting." The child looked at her mother's still face, then at Mason. Tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered something in her own language. Soft, trembling words that sounded like a goodbye. Mason didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. He moved closer and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "Hey, you're safe now. I'll keep you safe." She blinked at him, then hesitated, as if searching his face for truth. Slowly she reached out her tiny hand and touched the scar on his cheek. A faint blue spark flickered between them, a trace of her mother's energy still alive in both their bodies. He felt it, a pulse of warmth, sorrow, and something else. Connection. He exhaled slowly and looked out through the cracked bunker door where the horizon burned red with distant explosions. "We'll get out of here. For her. For you." Behind him, the child clung to her mother's cold hand, her small voice barely audible. "She gave you her light. Now you have to carry it."
Dawn broke over the ruined valley, washing the battlefield in cold gold light. The smoke had thinned overnight, revealing broken armor, burnt soil, and twisted remnants of two armies that had destroyed each other. Mason stood at the edge of the bunker, rifle slung across his back, scanning the dead horizon. The little alien girl sat behind him, clutching her mother's pendant, a small crystal sphere that shimmered faintly with blue light. For a long moment, Mason just stared at that sky, empty, silent, and cruel. "You said to save your daughter," he whispered, looking down at the lifeless body wrapped in a soldier's tarp. "But how do I tell her that you're gone?" He buried the alien mother at sunrise. The ground was hard, but he kept digging, his hands torn and shaking. The girl watched quietly, no tears left to cry. When the final mound of earth settled, Mason placed her pendant on top of the grave, pressing it into the dirt like a promise. The girl walked up beside him, eyes wet but steady. She reached out, took his hand, and whispered, "She said, 'Light never dies.'" Her voice trembled, but her words carried a strange strength, something ancient, like belief reborn in pain. Mason looked down at her, so small, so fragile, yet still burning with her mother's fire. "Then we keep it alive," he said softly. "Together." They turned away from the grave as the wind picked up, scattering dust and ashes into the light. Mason lifted her onto his back, her small arms wrapping around his neck. He took one last glance behind, at the grave, at the pendant glowing faintly through the dirt, and whispered, "Rest now. I'll make sure she sees the world you wanted for her." As he walked away, the pendant pulsed once, a brief flash of blue fire against the golden morning, before fading into stillness.
The sun had set behind the jagged hills when Mason finally reached the ruins of an abandoned outpost. The place was silent, half buried in sand and ash, its metal walls rusted and broken. But inside, there was shelter, a place to breathe. He gently laid the alien girl on a cot, wrapping her in an old thermal blanket. She was shivering, exhausted from hunger and shock, yet her small hand never let go of her mother's pendant. Mason watched her drift into sleep, the soft blue glow painting her face like a ghost of the past. He sat by the flickering light of a dying lamp, staring at the reflection of that glow. His mind replayed her mother's final words again and again. "Take my strength, human, but save my daughter." He didn't understand what she had done until now. The faint energy that still pulsed beneath his skin, the warmth that had healed wounds that should have killed him. It wasn't his. It was hers. He could feel her, somehow, a part of her living through him. Every breath he took felt borrowed. Mason clenched his fists, guilt twisting in his chest. "I don't deserve that." He looked over at the sleeping child. Her breathing was weak, her face pale. The planet's atmosphere wasn't kind to her kind. Without her mother's life energy, she was fading fast. Mason leaned forward, brushing a strand of black hair from her face. "I promised her I'd save you," he said quietly. "And I will, even if it costs what she gave me." Outside, lightning cracked across the horizon, silent and distant. Inside, Mason placed his hand over the pendant. For a brief instant, blue light surged, faint, almost alive, as if the universe itself was listening.
A violent storm raged outside the outpost. Dust and lightning swallowed the night, hammering against the old metal walls like a dying heartbeat. Inside, Mason sat by the faint blue glow of the pendant, the only source of light left. The child's breathing had grown weaker. Every rise of her chest was slower than the last. He didn't know how much time she had left, maybe minutes, maybe less. He pressed his hand against the table, feeling that strange warmth pulsing under his skin, the same energy that had saved him. It hummed faintly, like a whisper from her mother still echoing in his veins. He knew what he had to do. Mason knelt beside the girl and held her tiny hand. "Hey, you're gonna be okay," he said softly. "You hear me? You're not alone." Her lips trembled. "Mama, she's gone." "I know," Mason whispered, voice breaking. "But she didn't leave you. She's still here." He touched his chest. "In here. And in me." He took a deep breath, focusing on the strange rhythm inside him. The energy responded, a faint glowing pulse rising from his hands, flickering between blue and gold. It felt heavy, ancient, alive. He guided it toward the pendant lying on her chest. At first nothing happened, but then, slowly, light began to spread, tendrils of warmth weaving through her body like threads of life being rewoven. Her fingers twitched, her breathing steadied, her small chest rose higher. Mason gritted his teeth. The energy burned, draining him with every heartbeat. His vision blurred, colors blading together, but he didn't stop. "You're not dying," he whispered, forcing the words out. "You're going to live. For her." The glow grew brighter, surrounding them both in a soft blue radiance that filled the outpost, and for a moment, just a fleeting, beautiful moment, Mason thought he heard her mother's voice, calm and warm inside his mind. "Thank you, human." Then everything went silent.
Morning light crept through the shattered walls of the outpost, turning the dust in the air to gold. The storm had passed. Silence hung heavy, the kind that comes only after something sacred has ended. Mason stirred slowly, his body weak, breath shallow. His hand still rested near the pendant, but its glow was gone. All that remained was warmth, faint but alive. He turned his head and saw her. The little girl was sitting beside him, eyes wide, clutching his jacket. Her skin in regained color, her breathing calm and steady. She looked at him the way a lost traveler looks at the first sunrise, unsure if it's real. "You saved me," she whispered. Mason tried to smile. "No, your mother did." She shook her head. "You did. She said you would." Her small fingers reached into his hand, pressing the pendant into his palm. It felt lighter now, but still warm. Mason closed his fist around it, eyes wet. "She's a part of you now. Both of you. Keep that safe." The girl nodded, tears silently tracing lines down her face. "Will I ever see her again?" He paused, looking out at the pale horizon where the storm had broken apart. When the stars are shining bright, maybe that's her watching. Maybe she's proud. The girl leaned against his arm, quiet. Mason sat there, staring at the endless alien sky, knowing he'd never forget the sacrifice, the warmth, the impossible kindness of a mother who gave her life for her child. As the first rays of sunlight touched them both, the pendant flickered one last time, faint, gentle, almost like a heartbeat, before fading into silence. And in that silence, Mason whispered to the wind, "Rest now. She's safe."
Weeks later, the war ended. The human relief ships finally reached the surface. Broken fields, burned skies, and among the ruins, a single soldier tending to crops beside a small alien child. Mason had built a shelter where the outpost once stood. The girl helped him plant strange glowing seeds her mother had kept hidden in a small pouch. Each night they looked at the stars together, the same stars that once witnessed her mother's sacrifice. The crops began to grow faster than human soil science could explain. The air around them shimmered faintly with life, with warmth. Mason knew it wasn't just the planet healing, it was her. The mother's energy still lingered, nurturing everything she had loved. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Mason sat with the girl near the glowing field. She was laughing now, truly laughing, chasing the wind. The sound filled the night, soft and alive. When she finally sat beside him, she looked up. "Do you think she can see us?" Mason smiled gently, eyes on the horizon. "No, I think she's with us. In every breath, every leaf, every heartbeat." The girl rested her head on his shoulder, whispering, "Thank you for keeping your promise." He didn't reply. He just placed the pendant around her neck, its faint glow returning for a moment, and looked toward the stars. In that quiet, beneath a sky full of distant worlds, the universe seemed to pause, as if remembering the day an alien mother gave her light to a human, and how that light became something greater than survival. It became love.